Hey everyone, and welcome. The show we're going to be talking about today is Shadow and Bone. Fun fact, the author of the Shadow and Bone books, Leigh Bardugo, makes a cameo in the TV show. This show came out in 2021 and stars Jessie Lee, Archie Renaux, and Ben Barnes. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Shadow and Bone tells the story of how the world is split by a dark and deadly force called the Fold. The only person who can bring down the Fold and restore the world is a sun summoner, but they are rare and haven't been seen in years. In comes Alina, who is a unexperienced sun summoner, and she catches the attention of a darkling by the name of General Corrigan, who wants to train her so that she can help bring down the foe. Now, Alina must decide who she can trust, but also learn how to use her powers. This show showed a world that was split, and there were people called Grecias who had these special powers. The show itself kind of reminded me of like Avatar The Last Airbender, or maybe Fate the Winx Saga, or His Dark Materials. In Shadow and Bone, it was interesting to see how the Grisha were seen as elite considering that they had more supernatural abilities. I thought it personally would have been great to dive a little bit more into what their capabilities were because we saw many different Grecias with little different powers, but I thought it would have been great to kind of give more of an explanation behind Grecias and explaining like what the different types were so we knew ahead of time kind of what, lied ahead when we were meeting different versions or different people who were Grecias. Throughout the show, there was talk about how Alina was half Shu, and every time it was mentioned, there always seemed like there was so much hate towards the Shu. I thought it would have been great for the show to explore this a little bit more because they kept bringing this situation up with her, being hated for her past or whoever she is, but we never got an explanation about why everyone hates the shoe. And so I definitely would have loved to dive into that more. This show had an interesting story with multiple different storylines going on. I thought it was really interesting to see how they decided to juggle these storylines to make sure that they were all incorporated in the show. When it came to the story of Alina, I was always wondering who she could trust. There were so many people looking for her throughout the show, and so it was really interesting to see what their true motives were and who she could actually trust. It was also interesting to see the story of Nina and Matthias. It was like a forbidden love, the witch and the witch hunter falling in love. And throughout the show, we saw how they first hated each other for who they were, but as the show progressed on, they were slowly falling for each other, even though they didn't want to admit it. It was interesting to also see the story of the crows. They were like villains, but not really. They ended up hunting Alina in the beginning of the show, but towards the end of the show, they ended up being the ones that actually helped her. I think that, originally they were in it for the money, but I think deep down they're good people. I thought it was cool how the crows weren't Grecias, but they never backed down from a fight. You had Kaz, who was the brains of the group, and Nej, who was like a wraith, and then you had Jesper, who was a sharpshooter. And any time a battle arose, they definitely held their own. I was really rooting for Mal and Alina to become an item. Throughout the show, they always had each other's back, and I definitely felt like there was like some tension there, and I felt like they would have been a great couple, and I hope that we get to see them again because I would love to see kind of how their relationship goes moving forward. I did hope to learn a little bit more about Jesper in the show. There was a scene in which they were fighting, and Jesper is fighting a man who he's shot twice, and the man says, "You're and then Jesper hits him. And I really wanted to know what he was going to say after that. So I hope that that's something that they can dive in if the show gets renewed for season two, because it's definitely something that was brought up in conversation, and I definitely think it's something that we need to explore because there has to be a reason why he's such a sharpshooter. I feel like that may be, leading into something. I definitely want to see that explored. I thought that Ben Barnes did a great job as the villain in this show. Throughout the show, we see how General Corrigan is such an intimidating person. And in the beginning of the show, he's intimidating, but it really seems like he's trying to help Alina. But throughout the show, we learn more about his past and we learn his true intentions and how he just wants to exploit Alina for her powers. I love how they explained the Darkling's background and gave a flashback episode to show that he created the Fold. He created this whole story up about this heretic who created the Fold, and it was cool to see that it was actually him that created the Fold. I love Bagra in the show. Also, if she looks familiar to you, she was in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone as Madame Hooch. But in the beginning of the show, she was really mean. And, I really was unsure about the character. But then she ends up helping Alina escape. And I was really happy that she did that. But also, I liked how, she was the mother of General Corrigan. And, she saw what he was doing wasn't right. And so instead of like trying to just sweep it under the rug, she definitely took, the situation in her own hand and made sure that Alina was safe because she knew that she wouldn't be safe with her son. In the beginning, I will admit I didn't trust her, but when she, actually did help Alina and we find out more about General Corrigan, I thought that, was great that, she did that and then I ended up trusting her because it was like she was actually there firsthand to understand what happened with the Fold in the first place. I thought Jessie did a great job as Alina in this show. She really embodied this character who was new to this world and was kind of shy and embarrassed about having all of the spotlight on her. And I thought it was really interesting to see her take this role and, show how Alina is new to this world and, she's definitely not used to being praised for, being who she is. But that doesn't mean that she's not powerful, and she definitely knows what she wants and she gets the job done. My favorite part of the show is the episode in which we see when the Fold was created. It's an episode that gives us a really good backstory about what happened with the Fold and why it was created in the first place, but it also lets us know who the true villain is in this show. It was interesting too because we know that in the Fold that there are these creatures, and this episode gave us the backstory to where these creatures came from. And so I thought it was just a great episode to explain everything. Shadow and Bone is a great addition to shows that explore the supernatural. It has its own creative folklore, and I think it has a great cast. Hopefully, we get a season two of this show. If you have not watched Shadow and Bone, I suggest that you watch it. Thank you for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts down below on this video. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.